See, so this is where we're at with things. Gonna need your help. Can't do it all by ourselves. I've been holding it down for a few years now. Now we're moving into the marketplace. We got to pay an IT specialist who looks like us. We want other ones that look like us, right? My background is in MIS, Management Information Systems. One person or even five people can't do it all. So we have to work from where we're at and gain the benefit of that. This ain't about volunteerism. This is about self-effort. The return on investment. R2 Media, R2US.com, R2 News, R2 Store, R2 IO. IO just means high level. So for those of us that are engaged at that level, right, gonna need to know basics. Everybody don't need to know our moves. That's part of the problem. They're tracking and they know your moves before you make them. Why? Because study your habits. It's all science, it's analytics, it's things that. So I'm not going to take up the whole meeting, but I'd like to say that something has to change, and the change got to be within the people that see it. For those that don't see it, then nothing change. Exactly.
All right, give thanks, Brother Severe. All right, peace. With that being said, I want to circle back around. We had a couple more people that came into the space after we had done our introduction. So again, I'm going to give opportunity for individuals to introduce themselves very briefly. This is an exercise in community building. Once again, a lot of the times we, are passing by each other on a regular basis. We don't know each other's names. All right, so we want to make sure we're getting familiar with one another, who's in our rooms, who's in our communities, and then what could we possibly offer to each other in order to create solutions. A lot of times we're looking all outside of our community and everywhere else to bring about solutions to our issues and problems, but a lot of the time we could solve those things in-house. Right. So with that being said, I want to do a round robin again for those who have not gotten a chance to introduce themselves. All right, I'm going to come around to the sister first, and I'm going to swing it to Lorraine. Yes, sister, you can introduce yourself, let her know where you're from, any group, entity, organization you might be representing, and any area of expertise or interest that you may have. Thanks.
Good evening, good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Robert. I'm here I myself am an artist, not affiliated with anything today. I'm just like graphic artist, basically working with people. I've been here as far as that. I'm here for sometimes in the community.
All right, give thanks, much appreciated. All right, yes, brother, could you introduce yourself?
Peace. My name is Sabor. As people know me, I've been in the community for a number of years. I'm from Philadelphia, so a lot of people know my mom, father, we've been active in the community for years. We run a business, a restaurant. We do a lot of community events.
What's the name of the restaurant, brother?
T.O. Spirit First Food.
Okay, say that, yeah. Right. Yeah, go ahead, plug it. Go ahead, plug it.
We do a lot of community events, and I'm a member of the UNI-AACL.
Right, give thanks, much appreciated, brother support. Yes, go to the bottom here. Yes, could you introduce yourself, brother?
Yeah, I'm gonna say rule to everybody after work, of course, that means freedom. We talk about Kwanzaa and stuff, bro. Kwanzaa has to do with other beautiful things. It's a name called Shabaka, International People Democratic Rule Movement. It was an African word. Our culture during the time of Hajj Malik El Shabazz mentioned the Kenyan people's land, people army. fighting for freedom against the rich. For many years, I've taught African children in Philadelphia. My inspiration comes from ancestors, directly from my mom, from her grandmom, father's mom, father, grandfather, um, historically, Nat Turner. I don't know as much about Denmark Vesey, but Denmark Vesey, like Reverend Nat Turner, I said, I said it again. These are the kind of people that inspire me, like in current times, our brother who's sure to have one here, Christopher Dorn, also another brother. These are different actual waters and combat, Mark Essex. So we will talk about revolution. That's the solution that we allow them to talk about for rest of the neighborhood, the community, the city, in the country is not enough because the beast that we come to.
Overruled. All right. Give thanks, Baba Shabazz. All right, family. So once again, we're gonna get ready to close out this portion of the discussion of this forum. So again, if there's any final thoughts to our situation dealing with our Black women and girls, and this being National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I will be remiss too. Let me make sure I introduce my Baba at the back. If you could
Yeah, you know, and
I was down in African Cuban summer. Name myself, right?
yes, sir.
I run a foundation, Kwanzaa Association Inc. Foundation, now in DC. I used to be a nonprofit, but now I'm a profit foundation. And I'm a Pan-African nationalist. And what that is, I'm a Pan-African that supports change for Black people. Good change, if you want to work. Found a mental cares in Germantown High School. In DC, 41 years. I went to DC when it was the original chocolate city. Oh yeah. Everybody was taking names and doing something. So I came back like about 10 years ago now when we found mental care. What I'm gonna do, one of the most important things, I'm gonna shut up and do some work. Hey, all right.
And if forgotten it, I do all kinds of repairs. I can build them from the ground up, so if you need help, I fix them, clean them, repair them, paint them, whatever you need to do, including trees.
All right, yes, sir. Give thanks. That was Baba Yao. All right. Yeah, so the topic of discussion, once again, we want to give final thoughts, questions or comments for our topic, which is this being National Domestic Awareness Month. And what are we going to do as far as creating solutions around the destruction of our Black women and girls, all right? So ending the violence and abuse of our Black women and girls.
Thank you. I was sitting here listening to a lot of the solutions, and they're really powerful. But another solution I think that we need to deal with is ourselves. I think we need to teach our men and women how to deal with stress, how to deal with their emotions, because if you think that you're stressed outside and you come, because the world, let's face it, stress is going to happen. The world, we know our position in this country. You know, but if you think that going home and taking out that stress on your partner is the solution, it's not. So we can have all these organizations and we can have this program and that program, but if we don't teach our young men and women, our old men and women, how to manage their emotions so that they are not the victims of this society, you know, then we're not really going to get them. Because people don't know how to manage.
I say.
I was gonna say that a lot of times it's like our surroundings too. Like I watched some things, I was aware of some stuff, I got like, like just like there was something like the pregnancy, but also thinking of our children and thinking of our women. And when I said always said, that when they will be taken away, you have to be aware of our surroundings in terms of like hotels, like that. Because I think it was an article or something that was Google it, how they we saw that there were holes in such portions of the hotel rooms, so these children and women were also taken. So it's just that, yes, we have a small community right now. That's not a conscious aware of what's going on. But it's just that we have to take better at our surroundings. And a lot of times it really can kind of be with friends down the street because it's worse or that's fine. But we just have to be fully aware of what's around you. And in terms of violence, you may not always see that and maybe a man or a woman. I think that it did it, we have organizations that give us awareness or give us signs of emotions or use them kind of way. But sometimes the effect you don't see them. Sometimes it's just hey, I just if you don't know behind the I'm fine, it's just not fine. And sometimes that is over and for that person that woman for him, that abuse may register and if I had to see the way out, but like I'm definitely about emotional lessons. That you give that meditation, meditation, but and when you do, that can help a lot of men and women see a better place or see a better focus on themselves, change the impact of justification, not for the long haul, at least for that time being with those like maybe I can, be a better person. It starts with just our emotional intelligence, with our meditation being in turn, able to go within, or being to have these techniques. But let me take a step back. I mean, do meditation, you have to try to conquer what the pressure was feeling a lot of times from just the outside, the chaos that, or the PTSD that you was have. Anything to play over again, we to attack different issues. But it's doing stuff for many people are so this is fun. Thank you.
And on that topic, it appears to me that what everybody is saying is something I've been listening for quite a while. It's an insane notion that I need y'all permission to give, if you will allow me. I suggested since nobody on the planet seems to give guns about us, why don't we turn our love inward? And that's crazy as heck. If we turn our love inward, the hate outside is not. Because I remember once upon a time, long ago, not long, but long ago, we used to speak to each other. Yeah. Where did that go? Remember back in the day when we were playing on the block? Yeah. And the old folks looked like they were playing backgammon, talking about something like that. If something went wrong, we sprung an action like a superhero. Squad before the kids even knew what was going on. Why did you kept? Now we the old folks, y'all. All right? Do your job. You're the superhero. You don't need a cape. Just be concerned. Take your humanity back. That's the only weapon you need. Okay? If you want to strap the cape on, go right ahead. But if we watch out for each other, anything outside our circle will no longer matter. Babies don't get snatched because we are watching them. You know what I'm saying? Women don't get snatched because not only do we watch them, we love them. You don't let people be love get out of hand. You don't let things like that go wrong. This is our responsibility. Ain't nobody coming for us but we here, huh? So I won't leave it in the Lord's hands because I got to. So he woke me up, so he did his job. The rest is our job.
Ashay. All right. Words of wisdom from our good brother New World Warrior. All right, and I just want to add on to that again. One of the things surrounding what the brother was talking about, I believe, is being more organized once again. All right, and so again, I have developed a program called the Mighty Meiotic Men of Valor Action Network. All right, we have bi-weekly meetings. Our meeting is going to be tomorrow. Okay, it's every 2 weeks, every Monday at 9:11 p.m. All right, we hold that meeting for hours from 9:11 to 10:04. All right, we have a lot of coded messages within it, even how we use our time frames and descriptions on these meetings. All right, that we chose 9/11 because it's a state of emergency. All right, we chose 10:04 to close it because that is the affirmation. All right, it's the code for affirmation, 10:04. Okay, and so when we are distributing this information, you want to make sure that we're hitting people on multiple levels. All right, psychologically, all right, consciously and subconsciously. All right, we want to make sure we have some foundations that's rooted in meaning. All right, based on our rich history and legacy. All right, and so some of the things that we deal with is some of the things that we're talking about today: de-escalation, conflict resolution, critical and analytical thinking, emotional intelligence, spiritual maturity. All right, fostering healthy relationships. Okay, we have a portion called "What's Love Got to Do with It?" All right, when we just discussing the topics of sex, drugs, and money. Right, and how that plays into our relationships and levels of intimacy. All right, a lot of times we're looking for intimacy, and instead we're substituting it with sex, drugs, and money. And we have to be able to distinguish the differences. All right, and so we have another program that's spinning off of Men of Valor that's called BLUF, that stands for Black Love Under Fire. All right, and so we want to examine, some of the underlying implications that causes the dismantling of our families. All right, that we can trace back to the transatlantic slave trade. All right, where families were broken apart, where women were abused, where men were abused. All right, raped and molested. All right, a bunch of atrocities that has occurred to us, and it is my belief, it is in my opinion that that is where we began to take on a lot of our ills as it pertains to how we deal with our women. All right, coming from a point of powerlessness as men. All right, and having the only exude of power to be with the small unit within our, small shacks. All right, which is our women and our children. And we began to take on the characteristics of our captors and began to implement their methodologies of power and incorporate that into our own lives and practices. And so we took on these attributes like a virus. All right, and so within that, we have to purge ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually to get rid of that virus so that we can heal and begin to love on each other properly. All right. All right, good, thanks. All right, with that being said, we want to close out this portion. All right, of course, with our final comments, final thoughts from and introductions from one of the hosts for this evening, Empress Assassination, the founder and architect of the original historic venue of Washington First Schools.
All right.
Thank everyone for coming. And before we move on to the next kind of discussion, which is going to be reparations, and then we're going to hear from Baba Pete. But I wanted to before we close this session out, I want to make something explicitly clear. And that is the violence and abuse of our women and girls is more than what is being talked about or focused on. Remember, this month they say is Domestic Violence Month awareness. Domestic tends to mean for most in your home or someone that you know. But for Black women and girls, domestic means in the land. So when you travel, there's domestic and international, right? That's because domestic is applicable to the land. So the land is what's really violent. The most vulnerable ones are going to be the ones who, of course, catch it the most. And now that we're in a time period that we're in after COVID, who do you think is going to be the more likely to be hit the backlash of what has happened as a result of COVID? Now, let's connect the dots just for a moment. Crack cocaine. If you do not understand the system of white supremacy, everything else will only confuse you. You know who said that? Dr. Francis Cresswell and Baba Pete Bailey. Right. So here's the point. We keep regurgitating, well, this is what we need to do, and this is what it is. However, the increase of violence and abuse of our women and girls is off the hook. So whatever we've been talking about or doing, not working. Why? Most of the programs are systematized. The information, the methodology, the ideology is really more European structure. So how are we going to resolve our problems with using other people's concepts? So most of what you're seeing and hearing is really somebody else's stuff, just kind of rewrap, make it sound like it's what? But it's not black. Would you say, but oh, really? So how do we know that? Perfect example. You see these people in this room right here? We sent this out to over 500 people, at least. And this is the norm for Million Woman March. Why? Because we cannot be controlled. Never have been, never will be. And this is the home of the boule. Does anybody not know what that means?
Could you elaborate on that? Yes.
Let me tell you what that is. And this is not Baba Steve Coakley's imagination. We have allowed ourselves to go through the process so we know who is who. And we're now going to tell the story and then some. Because over 100 years ago, the boule was started right here in Philadelphia. And even though most people see it in one concept, it is very vast. There are actual members, and then there are people who just want to be, and then there are people who just follow it. So you need to now know that violence and abuse is continued by the hands of some of our own people, which keeps us from having independence. If there's no freedom, there ain't gonna be no justice. So what does that mean in real time? Question. We're gonna move on, but this is important. How many schools do we have here in Philadelphia that's independent? How many? That's independent? No. See how, again, you don't understand the system of white supremacy, everything else will be confusion.
What's our definition of independent?
Right. Independent. I meant, because what it used to be in terms of context of self-determination, it meant we own and operate, or like another word, or it's under our complete control, we ain't under nobody else's nothing. Be honest with you.
Thank you.
My son went to an independent school. His father made sure that they had that experience before they went into the world of chaos, of other chaos. We had 5 independent schools in the city 30 years ago. He's over 30 now.
Brother.
We have at least 5. Ivy League, Harambe Institute before it became charter, Lotus Academy, Academy of the Way, and Marcus Garvey Sheila. All independent. What happened? They saw the greatness of John Skeet, who started Harambe Institute. And he, like many, decided to go into the system and they became a charter school because Black folks would not support independent schools. So they had to go somewhere to get some money. Here's my point. Before we can end real violence and abuse of our women and girls, we got to get rid of treason in our community. Because that's linked to this whole other situation. The emotional stress, kind of arrangement, and all of that is connected to other components. And so if we're not talking about approaching this from a holistic approach, for example, as I mentioned to my sister, we have steps for healing. We can't just talk about, we need to do this. That's a good conversation. But the action is what's going to make the difference. So here's one, and I'm going to wrap it up, and we can talk about this later on this week if we're doing a whole week of sessions. What we're doing here in Philadelphia now is identifying public locations. Vernon Park, Malcolm X Park, there's Tustin's, there's King Session. All of them have spatial areas, much of it. Can we not have our own ancestral, sacred gardens? Why would we want that? It's from our healing. Wouldn't it be wonderful for you to go somewhere every day or any day that you're feeling good? And you can go just sit there, think, meditate, whatever, but it's a sacred location where you can light your candle, your incense, say your prayer, do whatever. Just sit there and chill. You see? Where's that at in our communities? And why haven't those who are supposed to be representing us even began to put anything in our communities as independent? You know why? Because emancipation and full emancipation is beautiful. Why the women in the city do not support the Million Woman March? This sister right here is having an event this month at the same time that we're having an event. However, I didn't know anything about it. Wow. You see what's getting ready to happen, y'all? Conversation. Get ready to deal with some truth and some reality in the city. Because like Troy Shiver, I'm bought and I'm lost. So we're going to say what is necessary to be said and understood. People are sent into our circles to take back information, find out what we're doing, and then see how they can usurp. Yes, sister, you're saying, you're here. I want this on record. I want it to be heard. Because Philadelphia, they dropped the bomb in 85. We dropped the one in 2025. Starting right now. Because this kind of behavior in the city must end. Because it is destroying our community. And before I close out, I want to thank Baba Pete Bailey. Because it is because of him and what he represents. I'm able to stand before you today and say, Philly. And I'm going to leave it quiet like that for a moment. But it's because of our elders. And no, this is an elder that I'm invited to be on my wise elders council. Because he's worthy of it. I don't mind listening to somebody that got some damn sense. For real. Not an elder because of age.
That's right.
you represent, what you're about, what you stand for, what you fight for. LWL has never had a grant, never had corporate sponsoring. People in the city wouldn't even give us a pencil. But we still persevered with all that we could, with the blessings and donations of those who saw our vision. We are thankful to them always, because we're the only entity in this country to bring 2 million Black women together by any and all means necessary without going to bed with the enemy.
That's a heck of a statement.
I want to share this thing with you, Spirit Brother Malcolm, so that you can see all of us ain't crazy and stupid. Some of us are real and ain't scared and are moving out in every way possible to do whatever it takes to get these people's foot off of our back and start kicking some of their behinds.
You go.
So I'm gonna leave it at that for now because again, this is what you're gonna start hearing and seeing this week. We have built something for 5 years that many had no clue about. Just like the Million Women March, the only thing they knew is when they saw it and they couldn't believe it because they didn't know we were organizing underground. We've done that again. Lastly, March of next year, African women in white will gather in New York at the United Nations for Hands Around the United Nations. As Brother Malcolm taught us to take our issues to the United Nations. So sisters from all over the U.S., we're hoping that they will join us for Hands Around the United Nations. We're really going to hold hands around. I asked this brother right here. I said, brother, I need you to go to New York and I need you to survey the area. I've been there many times, but I wanted a Black man to do this from his scope. And so he went and he surveyed the area. So I wanted to make sure when we put that information out there that it was okay for us to tell women to come and we're going to hold hands around the whole United Nations building.
Circle the block. All right. Yeah. Get it away.
So for those who keep blocking our messages and usurping in other kind of ways, well, I can't wait till y'all try to do some of that. So again, I just want to give you a little idea of what's coming. For you brothers, for you Black men, we love you. We honor you. We respect you. The other yokel-dokels? No. Making it real clear. You ain't stepping up, doing something in our community that really represents something. I have no respect for you beyond a certain point. I mean, of course, greetings, how are you? Thank you, bye.
Respect is earned.
You ain't doing something real? Greetings, how are you? Bye. So that said, any sister that is ready, we're ready. We're here. If you're playing games, don't come up in here. Many have tried it. And several of them are no longer on this planet. Because ancestors run this. I'm done. I thank you. Take this message with y'all, please. Let these people know we're not playing with you anymore. This is mother talking. You know how mother is. We will spank your behind and make your hell.
Come again, mama.
But we are going to spank your behind now. I'm talking about anybody, everybody that gets in our pretty way. That interferes with the liberation of our people. Thank you, Mother.
All right, now with that being said, I want to pull in and shift to Baba, our guest of honor for this evening, Baba Pete Bailey.
Yeah. Take this time. Yeah, I'm gonna sit.
You're right there.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to thank the organization, William Mark, for inviting me here today. I'm I've seen some incredible things. I'm listening and I want to know more about what is going on. I thought that I would kind of talk today. I think most everybody here know about Brother Malcolm as a warrior, and what he was doing in the battle against white supremacy and racism. You've heard a lot about him as a warrior. I wanted to talk a little bit today about Brother Malcolm as a master teacher, because the brother had that ability to teach, and to me, there's no more important member of the community than a master teacher. One of the things that he taught myself and those of us who were around him, and also I hope will also get to you, is Pan-Africanism. By Pan-Africanism, Brother Malcolm meant that the fate of people of African descent in the world that we live in is tied together. None of us will succeed without the other. Unfortunately, probably most people of African descent in this country believe somehow that they'll be able to do that without Pan-Africanism. And unfortunately, too many people on the African continent have the same belief. And as a result, we as a people are not doing nearly what we should be doing to promote and protect our interests in this world that we live in. You will understand this. Brother Malcolm made it very clear to us. He said it over and over again. The fate of people of African descent is dependent upon us getting together, especially the people on the continent of Africa and the people of African descent in North America. That if those two elements got together and began to work with each other with any kind of seriousness, that it would then spread to South America, the Caribbean, and Asia, and Europe. But that without that, we're going to be constantly exploited. And when I met Brother Malcolm in 2023, it was very interesting. That's when I saw him. And my first time seeing him, well, meeting him unofficially was at I think in Harlem in 1963, after the killing of the young boy Emmett Till. Mm. And there was a rally in Harlem around that. And people, came to speak. Like I remember one of the speakers was Eartha Kitt. She was going to, I was kind of shocked she was there. At that time, he had just done an article in Ebony magazine about the 10 most fascinating vintage. They were all white. And I was kind of surprised to see her at this rally. But I do remember Brother Malcolm spoke first, and then when it was her turn to speak,
the audience booed. They literally booed and would not allow her to speak. She started crying. Brother Malcolm then went back up on stage and asked the audience to not do that. To not do that. And the audience quieted down to me. And that's when I saw, the way people responded to him firsthand. But that was also the first time that he spoke to me directly. And I didn't know him then. But it just so happened I was at this rally and I was standing up, there was a chock full of nuts, I think called it. It was called chock full of nuts. They had a restaurant right there on the corner, 125th Street and Linux Avenue, down off the Bogart. And I was leaning up against, I was watching the whole event, leaning up against the window of this restaurant. And when Brother Malcolm finished speaking as the first speaker, he came down and stood, in the same area where I was. And there were two people between, I guess they were like, his guards. There were two people between him and me, and two people on the other side of him, and a couple people in front of him. And so when they started booing Eartha Kitt, I said out loud to no one in particular, I said, I wonder why they're booing Eartha Kitt. And Brother Malcolm looked down at me and said, because she doesn't like black men. And I always remember those were his first words directly to me. I will always remember that. That those were the first time he ever spoke to me directly. But by that time, I had become a student. And one of the things that attracted me to him was his absolute role as a teacher. This brother was a master teacher. And I can remember when he formed the OAAU, the Organization for African American Unity, and I became editor of the newsletter, the organization's newsletter. I had never had any journalism before then. I was like 24 years old. Never had any journalism at all. But I did read a lot. I always liked reading. I mean, I was not a bookworm. Every time I say that, I say, oh yeah, you know, I was not a book. I played sport, did everything else. When it was quiet time, I was punished for something. In fact, my mother, when she punished me, she would not let me read. That's how much I loved reading. So one of her ways of punishing me when I was being, when she told me to go to my room, I couldn't read any books or anything while I was being punished. So that's how much I love reading. And then I could write pretty good. So I volunteered to be editor of the newsletter. And in the very first issue of the newsletter, the first issue, I wrote an article about the killing of the 14-year-old boy in Harlem. It started the Harlem uprising in 1964. And one of the first things, when Brother Malcolm at that time was carrying out his Pan-African policies on the continent. And he called back to the office, and each person he had in each committee, youth committee, education committee, economics committee, culture committee, he asked them to kind of give a report to him on what they were doing. So when it was my turn as the editor of the newsletter, I read him what I read, and I said, I said the cop at the time of the murder. When I said that, Brother Malcolm stopped. He said, no, brother, you cannot call that man a murderer, because murder and murderer are legal terms. But you can only call him once he has been, convicted, and we know he's going to be acquitted. And if he's acquitted, he can then sue everybody who calls him a murderer. He can sue you for defamation. You say, call him a killer, because he's a killer, and it's a killing no matter what the circumstance. And so I sat down with the brother who had helped me out. He was like, how to handle it. And we scratched out, we didn't have the money at the time to redo 500 more copies. So we just kind of scratched out the word murderer and wrote killer above it and distributed the newsletter like that. So that was Brother Malcolm, the master teacher. He taught us. And, another time, on the day of his assassination, I had read about the firebombing of his home. And And when he came in the office that day, February 20th, I gave him a copy of what I did. He said, "Oh no, but Peter, you can't distribute." I don't. To this day, I'm not quite sure what I said. Whatever that I had said some really mean things about what we were going to do about the fireball and the brother. No, he said, "Please do not distribute this at the next day, which is February 21st, 1965, the day he was assassinated." He said, so I said, okay. I took those things, put them off to the side. And when he came in the next day, and again, this is the kind of brother Malcolm that is so often kind of ignored. This brother was very conscious, very courteous, very concerned about your feelings. So when he came in the next day, he said, "Brother Peter, get a chance. I want you to come backstage. I got something to talk to you about." I said, "Okay." And about 10, 15 minutes later, I went backstage. Now here's this brother. He had been banned 2 weeks before. He had been banned from Germany. I'm sorry, banned from Italy 2 weeks before. Then he had been his home had been firebombed. And when I went in that day, when he said come backstage, I'm not quite sure as to what was going on. I thought he had something to tell me. When I got backstage, this brother who was under all of this pressure, you know what he said? "Brother Peter, I hope you understand why I asked you to not distribute that news." I said, "Yes, brother, I understand." He said, you did a good job on it, but there was something that I had said in it that he said they could get us calls up where they give them an opportunity to take us to court and get us tied up in the court, spending money and time, in the courts rather than doing what we want to do. This is February 21st, 1965. Day he was assassinated. Under all that pressure he was concerned about my feelings. And of course, I said, "Oh no, brother, I understand fully. Why? When he said something, man, I listened. Because I knew I was dealing with a master teacher. And so the reason I was not backstage that day was that someone was coming in to ask for money for clothing for his children, which had been burned up in the fire and from the firebomb. And he asked us, about 5 of us backstage with him. He said, "Which one of you know what this guy looks like?" I said, "Well, I do." He said, "Well, go out and wait for him and bring him backstage." So I went out front and sat down in the little lobby in the Audubon Ballroom in the little lobby area and waiting for this brother to come in. And while I was sitting there, all of a sudden I hear all these shots. And I didn't know what was going on initially, but I heard a lot of shots, people screaming and everything. So about 5 of us up there, there was the men's and women's room off to the right. We ran into there. When the shooting stopped, we got out. And then I went in and ran out and jumped on the stage and Brother Malcolm playing on the stage. And I saw all those bullet holes in the fire. And all I could think was, he's going to die. He's going to die. That's it was probably more devastating to me than the later deaths of my grandfather, who lived to be 85, who lived a full life. My father, who lived to be 93. So Brother Malcolm to be assassinated at 39 was really devastating. And one of the things that he left us now, and I try to bring it out in the book. I've basically written 2 books about that experience of being. The one is called Witnessing Brother Malcolm X, the Master Teacher, and it's mainly a memoir about the experience and how I got involved and things like that. What he taught us, different kind of things like that. The second book, which just came out about 3 months ago, focused solely on what he was doing internationally. And this is something I feel as though this is a part of what Brother Malcolm was doing. It's been kind of in all the books written by him. This is kind of ignored or treated very, very lightly, or not dealt with hardly at all. You hardly ever hear about it in all the things that people say. What this brother was doing internationally. Brother Malcolm's goal was to take the United States government before the UN Commission on Human Rights. and accused it of being either unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of life. Now, at that time in the 1960s, a whole lot of folks were being killed and brutalized, exploited, and snatched by the white supremacists, including the bombing of the church in Birmingham. And so, because, and I don't know if this is true to this day, the United States had not signed the UN Charter on Human Rights. And since they had not signed it, then no one from the United States could go directly to the UN Commission on Human Rights. You had to get somebody who was a member of the UN to take your case. And Brother Malcolm was working on that political plan part of his life. He went to Africa. He had meetings of 1.5 to 3 hours with 7 major African leaders. President Nkrumah of Ghana, Nasser of Egypt, Nyerere of Tanzania, Kenyatta of Kenya, Azikiwe of Nigeria, Mobutu of Uganda, and Toure of Guinea. He had meetings with these brothers, ranging from 1.5 hours to 3 hours. I mean, they treated him basically like he was the Secretary of State, was our Secretary of State. And as a result of those meetings, they then invited him in 1964 to come as a guest, an invited guest to the Organization of African Unity meeting in Cairo. 1964 meeting in July of 1964. This was the first time that a Black person from the United States had been invited officially to come to the OAU conference, which, like I said, been held in Cairo. Brother Malcolm had put together a whole a statement that he had written that he was going to take and present to them, and in his effort to get them to take our case, one of them at least, hopefully more than one was agreed to do so, to take our case to the U.S. Commission on Human Rights. I've been told since then that it was what he accomplished at that time that basically led J. Edgar Hoover and the boys to say, we got to take care of this person. We got to take care of this man. This man, because you have to remember now, this country's involved in this so-called Cold War with Russia at this time. It was like the height, this so-called, and both of them were using propaganda against each other. Of course, the United States going around claiming freedom of justice, freedom of all, proclaiming itself as the leader of the free world at that time. So for Brother Malcolm to be able to get someone to take that case to the UN Charter on Human Rights, it would have been devastating propaganda-wise in the United States. Other than that, the United States, could tell you, go jump in the lake. And but from a propaganda perspective, it would have been devastating, and that's why they got very upset about it. So. Because of what Brother Malcolm did, the Organization of African did something that they had never done before and they've never done since. They issued a resolution. The Organization of African Unity issued a resolution condemning white supremacy and racism in the United States. That was unheard of. I have that resolution in book. A copy of that resolution in book. And I am convinced that from that time on, J. Edgar Hoover and the boys said, they had said, we got to get rid of this. We got to get rid of this. State Department, all of them want to get rid of it. Now, this was not the first time Hoover recognized very early, and I got this in the book also. J. Edgar Hoover recognized very early Brother Malcolm's power and what he was able to do. Because in a 1992 book written by this white journalist from England, he has one mention of Brother Malcolm in a 450-page book, and he says this: that J. Edgar Hoover had a luncheon with Senator Lyndon Johnson. Now, if it was Senator Lyndon Johnson, it had to be before 1960, because Johnson became vice president. The J. Edgar Hoover, at a luncheon meeting with Senator Lyndon Johnson, said, quote, we wouldn't have any problem if we could get those two guys fighting, we could get them to kill one another off. End of quote. Those two guys, Brother Malcolm and Dr. King. Brother Malcolm and Dr. King. And both of them ended up assassinated. Quote, Hoover, again, we wouldn't have any problem if we could get those two guys to kill one another off. Because, you know, and what they did, of course, was they had spies in Dr. King's organization and spies in Brother Malcolm's organization who were making negative statements about, you know, they would make terrible statements about Brother Malcolm, and the people of Brother Malcolm would make terrible statements about people because they wanted to start a battle. But it didn't happen. They wanted to start a fight between Brother Malcolm and Dr. King, hoping that would eliminate that
chaos.
And it didn't happen because there were also people in Brother Malcolm's camp and Dr. King's camp who were having quiet meetings to bring about a meeting between these two brothers. And I'm sure again that J. Edgar Hoover would say we cannot let those two guys get together because if they get together and start working together, it can be a real problem for us, especially as I said before, in the time of the so-called Cold War. So they ended up with Brother Malcolm being assassinated in 1965, and Dr. King being assassinated in 1968. And later, in the COINTELPRO, which was the counterintelligence agency of the FBI, again, they have a statement that is included in the book in which J. Edgar Hoover said, it's which the FBI said, I'm just going to be a group behind it. It says, we must prevent the rise of a Black Messiah. Malcolm X would have been one, could have been one, had he not been killed. Then they listed three possibilities. They said Elijah Muhammad, Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael. Then it said, forget about Elijah Muhammad, he's too old. So then it focused on Dr. King and Stokely Carmichael later became Kwame Ture. And of course, Dr. King ended up assassinated and Kwame Ture ended up exiled. Yeah. So, anybody who, and this type of stuff is included in the book. And because I wanted to focus solely on what Brother Malcolm was doing internationally. The title of the book is Brother Malcolm X's Strategic and Africanism. That's the title of the book. And the subtitle is An Important Guide to People of African Descent. And I think, brothers and sisters, that what Brother Malcolm was trying to do at that time on an international level, and especially trying to bring a tighter relationship between people of African descent in North America and people of African descent on the continent, is extremely important. And to this day, it still has not happened. It has not happened because of us. It has not happened because of the I tell my African colleagues and friends all the time, I said, man, what you all are doing now, if you get 10 people on the continent, get on 1 acre of land and call themselves the Republic of whatever, the next day they're gonna have ambassadors from Peking, Washington, Moscow, Paris, London, because they want to keep Africa, divided into all these small countries. So they'll send ambassadors, some of those people get 10 million people, 6 million people, call themselves, I'm the country of sun, and next day all of them, everybody got send them ambassadors. So they would, keep that the continent. They do not want that continent united. And if you want to know why, read an article in the 2009 article in the Washington Post, one of the 3 most important newspapers in this country. And in that article, the title of it was Africa on the Agenda. Now you notice, it's not Africa's agenda, it's Africa on the agenda. And the subtitle of that article is Africa, the key to global economic growth. And I tell my African friends, I say, how can you be the key to global economic growth and be in the condition that the continent is in? It's because you all won't get together. And what they're doing on a larger level, we are doing on a smaller level here in this country. We just absolutely refuse to understand that until we get together and develop some kind of unity group, and I'm not talking about that means everybody, we got to agree on every single issue, every single thing, because nobody does that. But until we get together and start working together as a unit, all this is going to continue. This is going to continue. I mean, the fact that the Washington Post even ran that makes me believe that they now feel so satisfied that they got Africa divided, they don't have to hide it anymore. When you say that Africa, and it's one of the three most important newspapers in America, put out an 8-page supplement showing and explaining why Africa is the key to global economic growth. See? And that's the kind of thing, Brother Malcolm understood that years ago. And he worked in that kind of thing. He tried his best to get, the African leaders, and black folks in this country to get us to work together and understand what we're up to. And as I said, in my book on what he was doing, focuses solely what he was doing internationally. The first section is letters, press releases, statements that he wrote in his own words in the first section. The second section of the book is nothing but the FBI files. I didn't change nothing. I didn't change one thing. I just put the FBI files just the way they ran. The third section, as I said, I was the editor of our newsletter, and we put a total of 9 newsletters. And we were covering what Brother Malcolm was doing in Africa in our newsletter. And so all 9 copies of the newsletter are in the book. And then the final section, commentary on what he was doing internationally in major newspapers in this country, and in several books. I tried to include, like maybe a paragraph from, some of the, like from the major newspapers. But when I went to the Washington Post, when I went to get copyrighted for the book, they called me up and said, you can't, you got to go to these papers and get that permission to use this. I said, wait a minute. I know that you can run a certain number of words from a paper or another book without having to go to the, without having to go to the to get it done. You can write. So I made sure I stayed under those words in the course that I put in. But they told me, well, you got to get the paper written permission to include those statements you got. So, rather than go through all of that, I decided, number one, to do self-publishing, where I paid a brother to do this book for me. And number two, I did not run what they said. What I did, I gave the name of the paper, the date of the paper, and the pages that the article, and the title of the article.
Another way.
So that way you have to go get it. You have to go get it yourself. But I couldn't, because I couldn't. They tried to keep putting it in, and they would, so since I didn't have the money, everything, there was no big fight with them over that. Right. I just decided to take them out. But I did put the name of the paper, the name of the article, and the page. That's it. And I'll stop there, and answer any questions you may have about the book or about my own personal. I want to read you something that Brother Malcolm said. You were talking about education. Mm-hmm. He said, education is our passport to the future. Yeah. But tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Yes, sir. That means that we got to get rid of this idea that some people have, and that's the way. It's up to us to educate our children. Everybody else. Even if they go to public school, we can still, they can go there and they can study math and, those kind of things. When it comes to history and those kind of things, we can teach them ourselves.
We must teach
We
them
must teach
ourselves.
them ourselves. Because the public schools, I mean, even what did the Jewish community do? All they do is watch the public schools and make sure they don't teach anti-Semitism, but they teach Jewish history to their children themselves. What happened
Every week.
What happened in the larger community? I went to Catholic schools in elementary school from first grade through eighth grade. I was taught by those nuns, white nuns, in segregated schools in Alabama. I was taught by those nuns that Queen Elizabeth the First,
Right.
they called her everything but a hoe.
Tried to call it that too.
They didn't call it in front of us. They called in front of us in the classroom. They called it everything but that. When I got in the ninth grade, went to a segregated public high school. We were taught that Queen Elizabeth was some kind of heroine. So they do that among themselves. So you know, if they do it among themselves, they're not going to teach our history to our children. And folks, if there's anything that we must focus on as a group of people, is the teaching of our history to our children, because that is going to be the way we get them to move on any area that we want to go on. The public schools are not, and for us to spend day after day, month after month, trying to get the public schools to teach our history is a waste of time. We make sure they're not teaching any anti-stuff, in school. But we got to tell them. I went to recently students at Howard University. Howard University freshman journalism students. 32 of them. I said, who was Lerone Bennett Jr.? Not one knew. But these are freshman students at Howard University. Did not know who Lerone Bennett Jr. And you know what I did? I didn't blame the system, but I blamed us. That's our fault. Because we cannot depend on someone else to teach our history to our children. Brother Malcolm understood that very clearly. He told us that years ago. We must teach our, they can learn all that other stuff, they want to do it in history, but for our history, we must teach it to our children. And I'm going to stop there to answer any questions.
Well,
that you may
I
have.
have one question. Let us know who's wrong.
Lerone Bennett Jr. Lerone Bennett Jr. was an editor at Ebony magazine. His brother, he wrote a book, an article in Ebony in 1982, geared to young people, students. Why Black history is important. I made my son read, and all the young people in my family, they had to read that article. My grandchildren, I brought it to, and I have great grands. Oldest one is 7 years old, but believe me, if I'm still around, they get to be 10, 11 years old, they're going to read that article, Why Black History is Important to You, by Lerone Bennett Jr. It is the greatest article ever written about why it is important for us to keep our
Yes, sir, it sure is.
Any other questions?
Just wondering if you knew or if everybody else knew that the best of everything on this planet has come from us. And I hope I'm rehashing old news, but the Catholics teach, well, everyone knows this. They teach as something that they learn from us. They say, give us your child from 1 to 7, and we'll give you a Catholic for life. So what is it that they learn from us about children's formative years that we taught them but now have forgotten? So we've got to remind ourselves that once you lay that template on that young African mind, it will stay there forever. That's why you can't turn your babies over to your oppressors to be programmed, because we're not being educated. I was in a room full of educators in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it really broke my heart. I was the only person in the room with a degree, in a room full of quote unquote teachers and I asked them to define for me what is education. Not one of them could give me a definition. I'm saying, how you gonna do a job when you don't know what the hell it is? You see what I'm saying? This is how disturbing it is, and this is what we have to understand. This is why they pay these people. We have to understand the importance of a job. One of my most recent sayings is, white folks are a Mickey fix. Their pet niggas are far worse. Because if you have a job description, don't you? So you have to obey the job description, even if it's against the best interest of your own children and your own people. And this is what's going on. So they cannot teach us, nor is it their desire. This is hence the school to prison pipeline. This is why it can and will always work so well, because we're not preparing to do what I was asking those teachers about. What does educate mean? They couldn't tell me. They told me everything white folks say. I said, well, no. Education simply means to extract the good from within. That's not what's happening. The good in us is being washed away, and we're being reprogrammed outside of ourselves. So in essence, you are walking, talking, living, breathing alien. Living your whole life not knowing who you are. Claiming you believe in God. But I'm saying the greatest insult to God is not to know who you are. Yeah. God made you who you are, but you want to be somebody else. You think you want something else. And I'm saying that to me is the epitome of stupidity. You can't get no dumber than that. But as you see, we find them all day, every day. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know what you're saying about.
Yes, sir. It's painful.
First grade through eighth grade. And like you said, by 7 years old, although there wasn't a Catholic in my family, my sisters and I would be baptized as Roman Catholics.
Wow.
And I remained that until I was 19. Then one day I went to confession. And I told the priest, I said, because I've been following, what was going on in the world at that time. And, I was following Africa, the African countries, and I was reading about what the Catholic Church was doing, in support of colonialism and everything, So I told the priest, when I went to confession, I said, I'm done with Catholicism. So he told me to wait outside.
Right.
I waited.
Because you were waking up. He talked
to me for 5 hours. Trying to change my mind. And I told him, I said, no. I said, because I've been listening to this, all these years, and you all are supporting colonialism in South Africa and places like that. So I can no longer, be a Catholic, and I stopped being with it. And I started going to, my mother was Baptist. And I only went to that church because I love gospel. I love gospel.
The music.
I love gospel music. And so I would go and listen to that gospel. I would, any church that had great gospel singing, I would go, sit there and listen to it. I don't know why, but I just love gospel. But this is very, very, and as I read your brother Malcolm's statement about education, he believes strongly. I mean, he constantly talked about that, the importance of education and of us being responsible for educating our children, and especially in areas like history. It was up to us. We cannot depend on somebody else. And if we can't get it into public school, then it's up all these Black organizations, the churches, and the civic organizations, and the fraternities, they should make teaching history a part of their agenda. By the way, in the Washington Post, last Saturday? I think it was last Saturday or last Monday. But the Washington Post had an article that in Florida, 200 Black churches have gotten together and said that they're going to start teaching Black history.
Good.
Because of that, because in response to that governor in Florida said about, we got to start
banning books
and saying that you got to teach that many of the Africans got skills because they were enslaved. They learned how to do certain things because they were enslaved. This is what the governor of Florida said. It should be taught that they learn skills by being enslaved, and that enables them to take care of themselves there. And so, but I was 200 Black churches in Florida got together and decided that they are now going to start teaching our history to their children.
I would suggest we watch them, because if they put a European spin on it,
Yeah.
they do worse damage than white folks.
Right,
do.
right, yeah.
Yes.
You gotta watch. Yeah.
When you went overseas, being or even overseas, oh, wait till that. Have you been overseas lately? Have you seen people that were like, were of your own people, our own people coming together? Have you
Is
seen
he
any
talking
other?
about?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
sure.
Okay. Let me.
Thank you. So my question was, the better hearing me is that being overseas or going overseas, have you been overseas lately to see that any other advancements being made between our own people over there that are like, getting together? Or have you seen any other ways of hope or ways of knowledge being across diaspora, aside from Philadelphia, but just overseas in that area?
Okay. I don't know what I need, but as I said before, I was with the staff of Ebony magazine for 8 years, so I did a lot of travel. And one of the things I did after the assassination of Malcolm, I had to get out of this country. So I left and went to, I was always afraid of flying. So I took a freight ship, and got off this. My plan was to go to Cairo, but I got off we got there 3 days late to Morocco. And by the time I got to Morocco, what I was supposed to get to go from Morocco to Egypt was gone. So I would have to wait around in Morocco for them. So I said, nah, I don't want to sit right here in Morocco for them. So I then went into Libya and into Kenya and Tanzania and East Africa. I went to East African countries. The last time I was in Africa was 2018. I went to a Pan-Africanist Congress held in Ghana in 2018. There were representatives there from 40 countries. And we did a lot of serious talking. And they're planning on having another one in 2024. They haven't decided where yet. I'm waiting to find out where. But they did have this one in. But I find that I found that at that conference, and I went to in 2018. I mean, they were supposed to be Pan-Africans, but I found the real serious Pan-Africans. We were in the minority. I would say maybe over 1,000 people came from 40 countries. But from talking to them, I didn't get the minutes that were really that serious. There were some of us though who were really very serious, and we kind of got together with each other and talked and exchanged, ideas and things like that, and articles. I took some articles. I took that thing about the Washington Post article that I mentioned. Right. I picked that with and showed it to them. Of course, I took Brother Malcolm stuff. I spoke to the group and talked about Brother Malcolm, what he was doing in the church. So I think it's somewhat like we are here. There are some serious Pan-Africanists on the continent, but they are the minority. And just like we are the minority here. So, but what we need to do is those people who need to get together sometime in the Tuesday in the future and just get together and meet with each other and start developing concrete ideas about how we can do. See, I think now instead of trying to get everybody, you're never gonna get everybody together. You come together with concrete things that you do, and then people like to join things that are all. Oh, I like that. And I'm going to join that organization. I like what they do here. And I'm going to join, so that kind of thing. Rather than trying to get all of them to, become instant Pan-Africans. Because it's not going to happen like that. I think the serious ones need to get together and start healing and do some concrete things that provide concrete examples as to how beneficial that can be for both the continent and for those of us. And as I said before, especially those of us in the continent, those of us in North America. Brother back.
We appreciate you, Baba, first.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
In the common question that they had, unfortunately, I was scared document. I understand there are certain countries that's breaking their ties with Western. There's one that was dominated by France, and they're breaking their ties with France, not even allowing their planes, France Airlines, to fly there anymore. And there's something interesting, and again, I'm sorry, I can't document, but there are countries now that's teaching their children, they have Afrocentric school, where the attire that they wear to school is African made. The language is emphasized as opposed to the Western language, and so on. And I'm pretty sure that pretty much came from us, that they were adopting. And in regards to the interesting governor in Florida, I've had information that says that the tourist industry is suffering tremendously.
Good.
Employing people that were planning to go there aren't going anymore. Hotels will have to lay off people.
Good.
Because of that position that he's taking. People are no longer going to Florida anymore for their planned tours. But my question is, I see that you have traveled to about 35 different colleges and universities. What I wanted to know is, for those young people that you talk to, how are you being received?
Usually, I guess you would call it a polite reception. But what I generally do is those students, let's say if I go to I've spoken at Harvard and the Yale, Columbia, and those kind of places. And you might have a few students who will come up to me afterwards. And then we go somewhere and sit down and talk. And I'm glad with that. You see, I reached a point in my life where I believe we should focus on, and some people disagree with me on this. If you have 20 people, I have 20 students, trying to teach them about Pan-Africanism. 5 are serious. The other 15, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. My thing nowadays, I'm 85 now. I ain't got a whole lot of time to throw away. But my thing now is, I'm gonna take those 5 and start doing something.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm gonna make them 15 though, because when you get serious, I'm gonna join it. But I'm not gonna waste my time trying to, what we did so many times in the 70s and 90s, we got 5 serious, 15 who just wavered, and we spent all our time trying to get to 15.
Right. And
end up everything falling apart. You take the 5 serious ones, come up with something concrete that 5 people can do. You don't try to, there's some organizations, what they would do, they say they got 20 people, 5 are serious. But because they got 20 people, they plan something that requires 20. And then it doesn't work. The thing falls apart, or it's kind of sloppy, and it doesn't work because only 5 people are really working. So you end up getting people. So my thing now is to get serious. I say that all across this country, we should be getting serious Black folks together and start coming with concrete things that we need to do as a people to promote it. And then I think other people will start, and people tell me, oh, you're being an elitist. I said, I'm not, I don't care if you're a farmer, a doctor, a scientist, a plumber, as long as you are serious.
That's right.
About the need for us to have unity, then you're part of what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
But and you got 20 people and only 5 are serious. They come up with something concrete that 5 people can do.
There you go.
And keep on moving, man. Rather than spending all the time trying to change those 15 and then end up getting the thing fall apart.
You learn the difference. You learn the difference of spending time and wasting time.
Okay, question back in.
Okay, I got it. Good. Where's the question?
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question, and then we want to have to wrap it up. We're actually about to close out. Might be able to squeeze a second one in, but yeah, we do have to get ready to wrap up. The establishment is getting ready to close down. All right, so I don't want to impede. All right, so we have one.
Two more questions.
Two more questions.
Short question and short answer.
I heard you announce that it was 3 important papers that said the Washington Post, what's the other two? And Bob Brown is the post social farming tour. Do you think that we got opportunity to bring him, talk about farming tour and Bob Brown's book? Do you think it would be, because we did you the first day and we Bob October the 31st? What do you think about dealing with what I say?
Okay.
The question about
The three papers that I referred to, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. I think those are the three most powerful newspapers in this country. So I read them, thoroughly to see what not because I think they're great for us, but because I want to know because usually they express the opinion of the ruling folks in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Those three newspapers express where the ruling people in this country are, and so that's why I read them rather thoroughly. And the second brother, you say Bob Brown is what now?
He got 2 books. Just finished one book. We're going to bring him on the 31st.
And you say
the month, we're going to bring him to the street.
you say he's the closest to Kwame Ture?
Yeah, he was close to Private Way.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's important to bring him. Like you came the last week to talk about Malcolm. We're going to bring him the 31st to talk about Kwame Ture.
Oh, okay, okay.
So do you think that's a great idea?
Oh, great idea, brother. Great idea.
All right, give thanks. We got one more question.
Quick.
All right, this is gonna be the last question before we close out.
My question is, how detrimental is materialization to our consciousness?
Materialization? Okay.
Okay, so the question again is, how detrimental is materialization for our state of consciousness?
It is very detrimental because we need to utilize our collective economic resources to promote and protect our interests in this society. I remember Dr. Kelly Miller years ago. He was a black scholar years ago, back in the 1950s. He made a statement that unfortunately is still true today. Talking about us as a people. He said, we pay for what we want and beg for what we need.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kelly Miller said that. He was a Howard University professor. He said that back in the 1950s, I think. And that is just as true today. We spend a lot of money, man. We spend a lot of money. We're in a position, I mean, and instead of going out there and waving flags and demonstrating and running through the streets when something happens, all we do is go into the big boys, like I say, let's say in DC. If somebody does something that is detrimental to us, we go to Walmart. Yeah. And say, Walmart, you do something about that cop who shot that kid, or you do something about that or we not gonna buy them.
There you go.
You don't have to do that. That's it. Yeah. We use our collective. We have sufficient collective economic resources to do a whole lot to promote and protect our interests in this society. But we don't use it. Kelly Miller said it. We pay for what we want and beg for what we need.
Those are the actions of the poor. And while we're speaking of economics, we do need to try to support this brother in every way we can. So we want to show him some things. Don't do like the church Negro would do, but take things. show him everybody where you love him. Right.
Pete, can I just make one quick announcement while you're here? We're formulating here in Philadelphia the Malcolm X Legacy Lecture. The focus is to continue to work of Brother Malcolm Hajj Malik El Shabazz as it strictly pertains to his work going to the United Nations and talking about the issue of human rights violations. So that collective is focused specifically on that mission to make sure that his work from 1963-64 in regards to human rights violations is continued. So if anyone is interested, you do have our number somewhere. Please let us know. Again, the Malcolm X Legacy Collective. One of our next missions is to obtain 1 million signatures that we will take to the United Nations next year, charging the United States government with genocide.
Yes, sir.
All right, give thanks, family. All right, another round of applause for Baba Pete Bailey and Brother Tim. Wonderful presentation. All right, Baba, Pete is getting ready to depart. He has to get ready to leave. But we are continuing the program till 7 p.m. this evening. All right, so those who can stay, you are welcome to. We're just closing out the portion with Baba Pete Bailey. Yes, the book is at the front. The brother Tim has the books. All right, it's $30 for one book. If you get 2 books, the combo is $50. We also have, of course, Baba Yao with some of his merchandise as well. So please patronize our vendors as well. And the MWM table is at the back. All right, give thanks.
Great job, sir.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Evo.
Much appreciated.
Yes.
Building up a little bit.
Yeah, I see.
So, I don't know if you got the message though. Now holding bi-weekly meeting.
Okay.
Might-
They're gonna be.
Yeah.
This got your book, sir.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Titled The Mighty
I'm touching your head.
So we have whole bi-weekly meetings every Monday, and just building with brother